Golden Age stars who secretly hid deformities and disabilities. What if the glimmering faces of Hollywood's Golden Age were stitched together with secrets? Scalps burned, teeth yanked, nerves fried, so you'd never see the scars? Imagine Rita Hayworth blistering through a year of electrolysis just to nudge her hairline. Clark Gable flashing dentures that reeked of hidden ulcers. Merle Oberon masking a crash-shattered cheek behind a light her husband invented. Béla Lugosi gliding on morphine to dull shrapnel-fired agony. And Gene Tierney staring through memories, wiped by 32 electro-shocks. Tonight, we count down 15 legends who turned private torment into box office gold. And by the end, you'll never watch their perfect close-ups the same way again. Number 15, Rita Hayworth, the Scalp of Fire. Before she was the love goddess, Rita was Margarita Carmen Cancino, the shy teenage daughter of Spanish immigrants who danced at hotel nightclubs to pay rent. Studio boss Harry Cohn looked her up and down and declared two things un-American: her dark surname and her dramatically low widow's peak. Out came the contracts, and with them a sadistic weekly ritual. Every Tuesday and Friday, Rita sat beneath a buzzing arc lamp, while an electrologist burned living follicles out of her forehead, millimeter by millimeter, inching her hairline upward so crowds would see less exotic and more all-American. No anesthetic, no days off, just the smell of singed skin and the realization that silence equaled survival. The pain didn't stop there. Dancing in CoverGirl demanded split-second spins, but Rita's legs were different lengths. Columbia disguised the imbalance with custom heels, one stacked an inch higher, the other hollowed to match weight, leaving her hips raw by wrap. She learned to pivot on searing joints while smiling like every turn was effortless grace. Offset, she whispered to a hairdresser, "They want a dream, so I give them nightmares disguised as dreams." Yet the public saw only effortless glamour, never the bloody towels hidden in the studio laundry. If Rita's suffering was inflicted by executives, our next legend volunteered for torture and made it an art form. Number 14, Lon Chaney Sr., the man who built his own pain. Lon Chaney spoke sign language before he spoke English. Both parents were deaf, so his face became a rubber mask of emotion. But rubber wasn't enough. For the Hunchback of Notre Dame, Chaney molded a hump out of knotted leather straps, steel plates, and lead weights until it crushed his ribs like a vice. Each take ended with crewmen unbolting the harness so he could gasp for air and spit blood behind the cathedral set. Makeup removal took longer than shooting. Alcohol to dissolve collodion, tweezers for spirit gum shards, cold water to calm blistered skin. During the Phantom of the Opera, he inserted wires up his nostrils to hook and yank cartilage until the nose flared like a corpse's skull. To keep the cheeks cadaverous, he stuffed cotton soaked in acid around his gums, then coated eye sockets with nitrate paint that burned so badly he blinked blood. Between setups, he'd laugh through cracked lips. Audiences want monsters, they'll get one. By 47, his immune system was shredded. Pneumonia took him in weeks. Newspapers called it a swift illness, never mentioning decades of self-inflicted trauma. Chaney's monsters terrified children, but the next star's smile melted hearts, despite being completely fake. Number 13, Clark Gable, King of Dentures. Clark Gable's drawl and tilted grin crowned him the king. Yet inside that million-dollar mouth raged a dental apocalypse. Poor childhood hygiene plus studio-issued cigarettes left gums infected beyond rescue. In 1933, surgeons yanked every tooth in a single sitting. The swelling ballooned his cheeks, and he spent nights pressing ice against a jaw that felt like splintered glass. The dentures solved camera aesthetics, but spawned fresh horror. Mouth ulcers burst under ill-fitting plates, leaking sulfuric taste that no mouthwash cured. Halitosis got so legendary, Vivian Leigh asked makeup for cotton balls soaked in peppermint oil, jammed them in her nostrils, and still gagged during Gone with the Wind kisses. Sound engineers battled a faint whistle, created each time air squeezed under his porcelain arch. They rewired boom mics, and even dubbed quick phrases to mask the hiss. Meanwhile, Gable's confidence crumbled. He refused steak dinners with co-stars. too tough to chew, and mastered the art of pocket laughter, covering his mouth mid-chuckle so shifting dentures never showed. Director Victor Fleming staged reverse close-ups. He'd shoot Vivian's face over Gable's shoulder with a stand-in so Clark could rest his aching gums off-screen. Viewers swooned at that rakish grin, never knowing the king soaked it nightly in a tumbler beside the bed. That grin cost a fortune, but the next idol's face cost him something far rarer: his identity. Number 12. Montgomery Clift, two-faced heartthrob. Monty Clift walked into Elizabeth Taylor's party a Greek statue. He left in a pool of petrol, windshield glass embedded in his skin. His 56 crash snapped his nose sideways, broke his jaw in two, and left one eye perpetually bloodshot. Production on Raintree County froze, while MGM bought him a new face. Emergency tracheotomy, bone wiring, plates in his cheek, hour-long dental reconstruction to salvage what teeth remained. When cameras rolled again, cinematographers blanketed him in diffused halo lighting and shot profile only from the untouched left, nicknamed the money side. Makeup artists glued wax into depressions where nerves died, and dailies were time-consuming because directors had to trim any frame where the wax slid under heat. Monty endured it all in stoic silence, but friends noticed pills multiplying beside his scripts. Painkillers to dull nerve clusters that fired like live wires, sedatives to sleep through jaw spasms. Audiences assumed his new haunted look was method. Studio press agents spun copy about personal growth, spiritual awakening, anything except the truth. Every close-up cost him shooting agony and nights of vomiting morphine and whiskey. Yet when suddenly last summer hit screens, critics hailed his gaunt face as courageous realism, unaware it was the permanent mask of chronic pain. Agony can be hidden by lighting, but skin color was a harder secret to erase, as our next exotic beauty discovered. Number 11, Merle Oberon, light that lied. Raised in Bombay, Merle Oberon carried Anglo-Indian genes, Hollywood deemed as box office poison. Strictly coached to claim Tasmanian birth, she dyed her hair lighter, practiced a plummy accent, and covered brown skin in bleaching creams that left chemical burns beneath her foundation. Then fate hit harder. A 1937 car crash carved a ravine down her left cheek and severed facial nerves, freezing half her smile. Her husband, cinematographer Lucien Ballard, invented the Obi light, a head-mounted lamp that bounced soft beams straight into her pores, vaporizing every pit and shadow on film. The device changed Hollywood's glamour look forever, yet few realized it was born to hide a disability. On set of Wuthering Heights, she lived a microscopic routine. Angle face 3/4 right. Keep the dead side from catching cross-light. Let a discreet assistant dab saliva pooling at the numb corner of her lips. Off-set, she prayed no journalist snapped candid photos in daylight. Studio contracts threatened termination if racial heritage leaked. Merle once visited India for a film festival, stepped off the plane to meet relatives, and denied their existence so tabloids wouldn't connect the dots. Her triumphs shone through a spotlight literally built to erase scars and lineage. When makeup fails, some stars remove bone instead of adding light. Number 10, Joan Crawford, the cheekbone gambit. In the early 30s, studio stylists measured Crawford's round face and decided a hollow cheek profile would photograph like fine sculpture. Rather than rely on contour powder, dentists performed the brutal buccal extraction, 4 back molars removed, sinus floor shaved so cheek pads caved inward. Recovery meant liquids through a straw and headaches that hammered her temples for weeks. The hollows became iconic, but maintenance proved hellish. Bridge work trapped food, causing infections that ballooned overnight. During Mildred Pierce, she filmed a 10-hour day, then collapsed on bathroom tiles, where an abscess burst against her jaw. MGM's nurse injected morphine disguised as vitamin B, so she could loop 2 dialogue lines before sunrise. Crawford responded by forging steel control. She installed dental mirrors in dressing rooms, banned fluorescent lighting that revealed swelling, and trained herself to smile, with lips curled just enough to spotlight cheekbones while hiding the dental gap. publicists bragged she slept with weights on her cheeks to keep them sunken. The truth was gauze packed between wounds so pus wouldn't seep onto pillowcases. Yet even perfect cheekbones can't help if you can barely see the camera mark. Number 9. James Dean, near-blind rebel. Long before Porsche engines echoed on that fateful highway, James Dean fought a quieter danger. The world beyond his nose appeared as swirls of muted color. His prescription approached -5 diopters, but glasses screamed weak, so Warner execs banned them on set. Dean compromised with hidden lenses for distant establishing shots he never told costumers about. Most days, he simply performed half-blind. Director Nicholas Ray rigged glowing chalk X's at Dean's feet so fuzzy white blotches guided him to stop points. Dialogue timing. Those delicious hesitations came from processing half-heard cues through partial hearing loss left by childhood ear infections. Crew considered him unpredictable. He considered them distant echoes. Off camera, he'd drive his racer by feel, memorizing engine pitch and gear ratios rather than road signs. One night, shooting Rebel without a cause, Dean misjudged a crane's boom arm and gashed his forehead. Makeup covered the cut, and he delivered the famous, "You're tearing me apart" line through blood trickling behind an ear. Fans read volcanic passion. They never knew he was reciting to a partner he couldn't quite see. If Dean's eyes blurred the world, our next star's heart blurred his future. Number 8. John Garfield, heart under blacklist. Brooklyn-born Julius Garfinkel boxed as a teen. Despite doctors' warning scarlet fever had scarred his heart valve. He carried nitroglycerin tablets like mints, sliding them under his tongue whenever palpitations hit. Warner Brothers spun fainting spells as artistic intensity, but the crew kept a stretcher nearby. Then came the Red Scare. HUAC subpoenas barred Garfield from European shoots, magnifying stress so much his resting pulse surged. One collapse on the set of Force of Evil forced an ambulance ride. Studio Flax issued a press note, "Summer heat." In truth, the cardiologist whispered, "congestive failure." Yet Garfield refused to name colleagues to the committee, watching paychecks vanish while hospital bills rose. On a rainy May night in '52, he stumbled into a friend's apartment, wheezed out a joke about losing roles to younger men, and slumped in an armchair where his heart finally quit. Newspapers framed it as a tragic, sudden end, omitting the decades-long secret that a damaged valve throbbed inside every performance. Silent suffering meets silent film thrills, because 8 fingers still held the city skyline. Number 7. Harold Lloyd, dangling by 8 fingers. The glasses character persona made Harold Lloyd the everyman daredevil, but fate blew 2 fingers away during a publicity photo with what he thought was a fake bomb. The device exploded, shredding thumb and index finger, burning cornea and eyebrow. Studio insurers panicked. Action comedy without full grip spelled liability, so Lloyd bribed a prosthetics artisan. The result, a skin-tinted leather glove capped with wax fingers molded from old press photos, reinforced by a metal splint. He could flex just enough to grip props. It itched horribly. Talcum provided brief relief before sweat melted adhesive, sometimes mid-shot. Filming the clock tower scene in safety last required white-knuckling a ledge 20 stories up with 3 living fingers and 2 wax fakes slick with perspiration. Crew below held tarpaulins. Lloyd refused nets, fearing reflection in the lens would expose the secret. After every take, he submerged the hand in ice water, drained pus from blistering stumps, and joked, "At least chap lotion costs less than workers' comp." When the movie opened, audiences screamed at the spectacle, never realizing the actor risked death, partly to prove a missing hand wouldn't end a career. Fans paid to be scared, but our next vampire walked in constant personal horror. Number 6. Béla Lugosi, Dracula's sciatic curse. World War trenches gifted Béla Lugosi shrapnel that settled near his sciatic nerve. 2 decades later, every step fired lightning from hip to knee. Universal loved the stiff prowl, perfectly undead, but Lugosi privately called it walking on knives. Between takes, he clenched set furniture, waiting for morphine ampules to dull the blaze. Legal blindness complicated matters. Without thick spectacles, he tripped on cables. Cameramen raised floor tape so he could sense it brush his boots. Each hypnotic stare was him narrowing pupils to focus a blur into something recognizable. Add a mild aphasia after a wartime concussion, and Lugosi memorized lines phonetically, mouthing Hungarian cadence under breath until syllables fit. Morphine dependency sprouted quietly. Executives green-lit prescriptions as long as dailies stayed on schedule, but once box office dipped, they leaked rumors of difficult temperament and blackballed him from prestige sets. Lugosi spent twilight years touring cheap stage shows, still in the Cape, bowing to applause that masked tremors no one cared to light with kindness. Shakes of pain can be hidden in fast talk. Just ask our next queen of clipped diction, number 5, Katherine Heppern. Tremor in silk. Kate Hepburn's tremor started as a barely perceptible flutter at her teacup rim. Gossip columns whispered nerves, but neurologists called it essential. She engineered a disarming weapon, speed. By firing dialogue like tennis volleys, she forced audiences to focus on cadence, not quiver. Directors tried retakes. She insisted on single long shots, so momentum blurred jitters into kinetic energy. Wardrobe became armor. High collars braced the neck, while silk scarves draped to catch head trembles. Costume designers added deep pockets, so hands could lock inside fabric during close-ups. In The Philadelphia Story, she played golf on screen not for character flair, but because swinging clubs let her rhythmically mask involuntary shakes. Socially, she curated solitude. Invitations to cocktail galas meant glassware wobble. She'd decline with a quip about early call times. Lovers learned to ignore her nightly ritual, icing wrists until numbness calmed spasms, then flexing fingers on piano keys for dexterity. Critics called her willful. Spencer Tracy called her battle-ready. She called herself busy. But even poise can't stand without bones that obey, as our wheelchair trailblazer learned. Number 4, Lionel Barrymore, wheelchair trailblazer. Lionel Barrymore could outsell monologues, drunk or sober, but arthritis fused his joints like rusted hinges. A fall during a free sole broke his hip. Twice. Studios strapped iron braces under wool trousers, cinched them with leather belts that sliced thighs, and rolled cameras while he swallowed screams. Crew changed sweat-soaked gauze between takes, dousing bloodstains in iodine. By 38, he couldn't stand. MGM faced a dilemma: fire a legend or seat him. Wheelchairs appeared, but accountants halved his salary, citing reduced function. Offset, he rationed legal powders, cocaine by rumor, to numb midnight spasms, because morphine dulled memory lines. Despite agony, he delivered powerhouse roles. Snarling Mr. Potter in It's a Wonderful Life, crusty Dr. Gillespie in 9 sequels. Letters poured from disabled fans who saw themselves on screen for the first time. Hollywood claimed progress. Barrymore knew it was cost-benefit math. Standing tall isn't height, it's illusion, bricks, and ego. Number 3, Allan Lad, man-maker blocks. Paramount's answer to larger-than-life heroes stood barely 5'6". In westerns, he fought 6-foot villains atop concealed 6-inch boards called lad blocks. Carpenters carved trenches so co-stars could stroll lower ground while cameras framed horizons above their hats. One fight scene in Shane required a cliff-top set so Lad could stay level with towering Jack Palance. Studio PR dubbed it epic scale, never height accommodation. Long hours atop risers strained calves. He soaked legs in ice baths before dawn call. Wardrobe glued boot soles to pants cuffs so blocks wouldn't slip mid-stride, and grips carried emergency sandbags. If wind tipped a platform, they'd wedge sacks under heels before he toppled. Yet critics praised his grounded presence. Little did they know he balanced on carpenter dreams and ankle cramps. Height may impress, but steel nerves define a femme fatale. Number 2, Barbara Stanwick, steel-backed femme fatale. At 14, Ruby Stevens, later Barbara Stanwyck, performed a circus horse stunt, missed the saddle, and cracked vertebrae like snapped matchsticks. Doctors bound her torso to a board for months. Afterward, pain tracked every breath. Hollywood sets offered limited sympathy. She stitched custom corsets of whalebone and metal stays into evening gowns, so audiences saw poise, not braces. Fight choreography in Double Indemnity looked effortless, because co-star Fred MacMurray timed arm grabs with her brace's pivot points. Between takes, she loosened laces and inhaled shallow sips of air. Painkillers dulled reflexes, so she refused them, preferring lucidity over comfort. Offset, she slept on a hardwood door laid atop cinder blocks, claiming soft mattresses were for quitters. Stanwick's toughness became mythic, but nobody mentioned the steel scaffolding beneath silk. When a journalist asked about her ramrod posture, she winked, "Good breeding." The truth? Iron bars hugging fractured bones so fiercely that end-of-day bruises read like grill marks up her ribcage. Finally, we reached the most tragic alchemy of glamour and agony, where electricity wiped a memory clean. Number 1. Gene Tierney. Memory sold for box office. Gene Tierney's emerald eyes drew crowds, but her real story began with a fan's innocent request. A woman fighting measles slipped past Navy screening at the Hollywood canteen, hugged a pregnant Gene, and left behind a virus. Tierney's daughter was born blind, deaf, and neurodivergent. Studio chiefs fretted the healthy family brand, so they armed her with pep pills, amphetamine cocktails disguised as vitamins, to plow through musicals while grief clawed at her chest. When insomnia and despair bled into performance, executives ordered electro-convulsive therapy at a private clinic. 32 jolts erased short-term recall and fractured long-term memories. She'd opened scripts to find her own handwriting foreign. Back on set, cue cards hung behind camera lenses. Directors barked lines into hidden earpieces so she could parrot dialogue seconds later. Her famous glassy stare in Leave Her to Heaven wasn't icy villainy. Some days, she simply couldn't focus her vision after seizures sparked by shock treatment. Yet, reviews hailed hypnotic intensity, and the box office soared. Fox gave her a bonus. She spent it on specialists for her child, knowing each paycheck relied on surrendering more fragments of herself. Years later, Tierney wrote, "They said electricity made me better. It only made me forget why I hurt." Viewers still adore her radiance, but listen closely. Inside every clipped line is a mother counting the cost of fame in lost memories. Roll credits on the illusion of perfection. 15 icons, 15 secret wars fought beneath Klieg lights. Next time you watch Rita flip her hair, picture the burn scars just below that gleaming hairline. When Gable flashes his killer grin, remember the ulcers simmering behind porcelain teeth. See Harold Lloyd swing from a clock face and imagine sweaty wax fingers moments from slipping. Hollywood sold us dreams. The actors sold pieces of their bodies and souls to fulfill them. If one story stunned you, tap the comments. Tell us which secret rewired the way you see classic cinema. Hit subscribe to join our next dive into the hidden histories the studios still hope you'll forget. And remember, real magic isn't perfection. It's imperfection, endured.